Hi, and welcome to the Self-Reliant Creative Process course. So let's start a conversation with the first question. What is creativity? What does that mean to you? See, I think creativity is involved with generating ideas and manifesting them in meaningful ways, and that we have a creative thought and manifest it through a process, that we have at our command, really whether we know it or not. And the process impacts our overall productivity and the accomplishing of day-to-day life activities. See, we possess a fundamental human desire for creativity to accomplish tasks, build our lives. And what matters most is what we each find as meaningful. Whether it's considered artistic or not, doesn't matter. So whether growing a business or planting a garden or learning a musical instrument or organizing a move across the country, we can unite our thought processes while constructing and sequencing the necessary steps. We are all creative and artistic, regardless of our endeavors. Once we develop familiarity, the approach can be replicated in numerous situations. So now let me ask you this. Do you think the creative process can be analyzed, broken down, and put into steps? What do you think about this? Because I think it's a built-in ability you already have. See, gravity exists whether or not we know about it or care about it, how it works. There's nothing to participate in there. But mastering the creative process to give ourselves a clear understanding involves certain internalized elements about ourselves and the outside environment as well. And that is what allows us to receive and stay connected and execute inspiration more effectively and consistently. So, let's recognize some of the primary issues blocking creativity. So for many, the creative process can feel elusive and inconsistent, and there's a lot of mythology about the artistic lifestyle. And without a clear fundamental understanding, we can kind of navigate the execution of daily activities and creative pursuits rather haphazardly. So let's destroy a few myths, reveal some clear principles, and deliver some methodology to facilitate our creative process and to be more productive in general. So we want to turn our inspiration into reality, and we clarify ideas, we establish focus, we launch steps, and this puts intention into our daily lives. And part of this program is to understand that we have an inner world within us and an outer world that we're living in that interplay and interact with each other. And from that, things get created. And it's sort of like understanding a structure like a house where you build it up from the ground up. So that's what we're going to do. All right. Number one reason we get in the way of the creative process is we romanticize and get overinvested in the struggle. You ever notice how people, especially these days, who make life and their creative process and how they go about things kind of look easy, they get pretty harshly judged. And the truth of it is, they're confronting the rest of us who are attached to our struggles and our difficulties. And conquering the struggle sounds noble and it's heroic and it represents a lot of romantic pretensions. And does life have to be hard to be good? Always? Are we trying to earn our life through this story? And if life were easier, would we deserve our rewards any less? Number 2, creative inspiration or the muse comes and goes. I don't have control over that. So this infers that something magical is going on beyond our control, like luck of the draw. And, some days we have it, some days we ain't got it. The reality is we have a tremendous amount of control over our creativity, but only after we understand the process involved and how it works uniquely through each of us. Because at times, and often unconsciously, we are all aligned with our creativity. And in those moments, we're acting within the context of that process. But when we lose the connection, it definitely feels very elusive. A self-reliant creative process course user had this to say: I always believed inspiration came like a bolt of lightning. After working with this model, what I recognized is that I get a small piece of the whole and I execute that. And then I see the next small piece and I execute that. Before I know it, I've accomplished working through an entire large problem. I did it as a continuum in a series of sequenced steps. I only needed to know what to execute next all along the way, but I had to trust enough to keep taking action. Number 3, creativity is only for artists like fine arts and inventor types. Yet, every time you come up with a solution to a problem, you are being creative and using your creative process. So creativity is not limited to certain people or certain types of activity, because there's art involved with virtually every endeavor in life, from the most simplest to the most complex. I mean, setting a table, arranging a room, a vase of flowers, organizing your desk drawers, your dresser drawers, all of those involve a creative process. Number 4, exaggerating the importance of the right environment. You see this a lot in movies. The creative people, they can only be creative after they put themselves in this beautiful and inspired surrounding, and it has a lot to do with the physical and environmental comfort. Or the opposite, where they have to have total discomfort because then they can suffer for their art. And while many fantasize about those beautiful views of the lake and their soft leather chair, there are many writers and other creators who have very simple and basic surroundings because they're more focused on the internal environment, and they just need the external environment to facilitate that. Number 5, the need for substances to get in the mood. Oh yeah, many of us are very familiar with this one. And the idea is something's missing, the spark, the mood, and that can only be filled with drugs and alcohol. And then that begs the question that without the substance, can we be creative? And we may not enjoy the process the same way, but it is inherently more sustainable. And perhaps it could be just an excuse in a way to indulge ourselves. So there's a little digging into that one that we have to do. And that can take a lot of thinking. And a course user on that subject had this to say: I felt scared doing creative activities without a drink to break the ice. But I discovered my fear involved simply getting started. Now I know the first few minutes of writing is simply warm-up, pre-game, exhibition season. It doesn't count or matter. It's just to get engaged. It's like warming up at the gym before I actually start exercising. Which leads us to the next point. Number 6, we are paralyzed by the intimidation of the blank canvas or page or starting a new project. And this misconception involves failing to recognize the need to warm up. And we can get caught up in the enormity of the idea or the project and lose track of the steps involved or where we are at a given time. And if it's not flowing, we have to start a flow. It requires an appropriate way to enter the stream of creativity. and working with the part of a project that is in flow and where you are. It's sort of like working with the low-hanging fruit, which we'll get into in another video. And number 7, I don't have to be organized. I know where my stuff is. Structure is stifling. Structure is restriction. And this reflects a lack of understanding of the relationship between our outer environment and internal frame of mind. And this has been a big challenge for myself in particular. So I create a lot of stuff, and I have had a tendency for years of writing things down on scraps of paper. And then all of a sudden there's piles of paper everywhere. I don't remember what that was from a week ago, that comment, that line, that paragraph. So what ends up happening? I just throw it all out, start all over again. So one of the most important things I had to learn personally was that every day, every 2 days at the very most, I had to develop the discipline to organize all the ideas that I was creating into the appropriate place, the appropriate file on the computer. This is the music that I'm working on. This is the writing that I'm working on. This is each thing, to keep it current and keep my mind in the flow of it. So I was always stepping into a ready-to-go situation. Organization is very, very important. It's sort of like a computer operating with numerous files open, and we're just going back and forth between all these files, but we're not actually doing anything with them. And too many open files, it's like too many projects, not enough focused attention and poor activity management. So in the long run, we discover that being busy ultimately represents misaligned thought. So busy doing what is what we have to ask ourselves. So in the description below, I'm going to put a link to a video that a comedian by the name of Bob Newhart did many years ago. And I think it's very apropos and funny to what we're talking about here today. So now it's time for your homework assignment. Didn't think you were going to get away that easy, did you? Okay. So what are your default romantic pretensions regarding the creative process? And maybe I didn't cover them all. Maybe you've got one that we haven't thought of before. We'd love to hear it in the comments below. So please add that in. And also, what forms of creativity do you enjoy? And what would you like to pursue? So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you got some value from this. Tell all your creative friends to watch too. And we'll see you again in the next video.